So in this video, we're going to do our last practice, and this time we're going to try to match a story to a diagram that's already given, and then come up with a meaning for what the variable means in each problem, and finally an equation that we can use to solve, and then figure out what does that solution actually mean. All right, so let's get through all of that. So the first thing you want to do is read the actual stories. Lynn had 90 flyers to hang up in the school, and she gave 12 flowers to each of the volunteers, and then took the remaining flowers and divided them equally between the 3 volunteers. So the fact that they have a number here, 12 flyers, attached to the word each, makes me think that I have a solution for this already. Usually that's when you end up with the parentheses with boxes with numbers added to it. So I know what I'm looking for, but I'm going to read the other one just to make sure. Well, second story, Lynn adds 90 flowers to hang up around school, and after giving the same number of flyers to each of the 3 volunteers, she had 12 flyers left to hang herself. Now notice their word each is still there, but it's not attached directly to a number. And you have 12 flyers left total at the end, not to each person. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this refers more to A, and that B is what's actually referring to this story right there. Now, the next thing we have to do is figure out what does the variable mean in each story. Well, if you think about it, she's going to get the remaining flyers, divided them up equally on story B. That is what that Y means, okay? But for story A, what that means is that she's actually getting the same number of flyers, right? And then giving that to each of the volunteers. So it's giving the same number of flyers to each of the volunteers is what that X is going to mean. The next thing we have to do is come up with an equation for each problem. Well, on the first one here, we have 3 sets of X, and then we add 12 to that, and we get 90. But that's very different on the second time because we did that thing to each of them. We end up with 3 sets in the parentheses, right, of Y plus 12, which equals 90. So because of that, you're also going to get very different solutions for these problems. All right, let's solve the first one first. This is a little bit easier. All you have to do is start with orders of operation in reverse. We're going to deal with the adding first. So we're going to get rid of the plus 12 by subtracting 12 from both sides of the equation. That cancels out the 12s, and we end up with 3x equals 78. Now, the next step, because that 3 is multiplying, is dividing both sides of the equation by 3. And if we do that, we end up with the 3's cancel out, and we have just x equals 26. Now, what does that mean? X equals 26. It means that each of these boxes is 26. They got 26 flyers each, which comes up to 78, plus the 12 that you have to hang up. That is indeed 90. And you should check that work, right, by plugging it back into the expression. But you can also check if the logic makes sense by looking at the diagram. 26 plus 26 plus 26 makes 78, plus 12 of hers, 90. That makes sense. Let's try to solve the next one too. Remember, in this situation, you have 2 choices. You can distribute the 3 first and then solve, or you can do parentheses last. I like doing parentheses last, which means the first thing you need to do is divide both sides by 3 to get rid of that 3. When you do that, the 3's cancel out, and all you have left with is y plus 12 equals 90, divided by 3, which is 30. Our next step is trying to get rid of that 12 that's over there, and to get rid of that, since it's adding, you have to subtract 12 from both sides of the equation. When you do that, the 12's cancel out, and all you have left is y equals 30 minus 12, which equals 18. So what does that 18 means, though, in our problem? Well, it means that each of these guys, after they got the 12 flyers, she realized she had 18 left to give to each one of them, which makes sense. You should check your work by plugging back to the expression or the logic of the problem. 12 plus 18 is 30. 3 sets of that makes 90. So that does make sense as a solution for these problems. So in here, we read a story, matched to the diagram, created an equation, figured out what the variable meant in each case, and then solved it and thought about what the solution meant, plugged it back into the problem, and made sense out of it. That is the culmination of everything we did in this chapter. Practice on your own. Come to office hours if you need help. I'm here for you. I'll see you next week for the test review.